Moving from Canada to Portugal was quite a change for me, and I was in for a few surprises when I moved to Lisbon, even after doing lots of research. If you move into Portugal, well, you're in the right place, my friend. In this video, I want to share some expectations that you might have about moving to Portugal and sometimes the harsh reality of it. I'll share some secrets that other people don't talk about, so you feel 100% ready for your move to Portugal. So, are we ready? Let's get started. The biggest surprise for me was weather. Surprised? Yeah, I was too. When thinking of Portugal, people imagine, sunny days all year round, nice and comfortable weather, people wearing shorts, going to the beach, right? Wrong. Once the sun goes down, you're doomed basically, because it can be really hot during the day and then it can be really cold during the night, especially if you're close to the water, close to the river. Get a jacket with you, please. And if you need to leave your house at 5 p.m. in winter, you will either be sweating because you dressed up for night weather, or you'll be cold during the night because you dressed up for day weather when it was plus 25, sun was shining, and now it's evening and it's plus 12 and you're kind of cold. Another interesting fact is that in the majority of apartments, houses, there will not be any central heating. Therefore, you will need to use heaters. But also you will need to use dehumidifiers, humidifiers, ACs, many different devices. Winters are just different in Portugal. When it's plus 15 outside, it's plus 15 inside. Some mornings I woke up to plus 16 in this specific office and I was like, what is going on? It is so freaking cold. And the coldest part about it all are the floors. You literally get off your bed and your feet are frozen. And take it from me, I come from Siberia, the frozen part of Russia. I know what a winter is. I've spent 7 years in Canada, and Montreal winters are just, they're like windy and humid. The coldest winter I have ever experienced was here in Portugal. And I'm not talking about the outside, I'm talking about the inside of your place. Honestly, the first winter here in Portugal was terrible. I think I froze to my bones, so now winters are not that bad. But also I think this winter wasn't that bad compared to the previous one. In some regions of Portugal, it can go up to 0 degrees Celsius, but in Lisbon it was around, 10, 12, but it was still pretty chilly. And I wore my winter jacket from Canada. And another thing about weather and climate and temperatures is summer in Portugal. It can get really hot. So if there are people telling you, oh, you will not need an AC, don't listen to them. The first year we moved to Lisbon, people were like, oh, you're okay with just a fan? No, you're not okay with just a fan. It is freaking hot. I mean, it always depends on your apartment, because in some apartments you can close the blinds so it's pitch dark and it's not gonna be too hot. But in our living room, it's the sunny side and the temperature there during the summer is easily 30 degrees. I've witnessed personally 29 this year and it's mid-April. But let's talk about something else. The next thing surprised me a lot. And I knew Portugal was a hilly country, but I think I underestimated it because the hills here, they do exist. After a month of navigating, of walking in Lisbon, my knees were like, bye, we're not functioning anymore, because I had a knee injury when I was younger. So when we moved to Lisbon, the injury was like, hey, I'm alive. No, you're not gonna walk those hills. So I started doing sports and now it's much better. So you get what I'm saying? If you're planning to walk in Lisbon, in Portugal, start working out now. You'll thank me later, and your knees will thank you later. And if Google Maps tells you it's a 3-minute walk, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a walk uphill, so please be ready for that too. However, if you have kids or you just prefer to live in a flat neighborhood, this option is also available to you. For example, if you're planning to move to Lisbon, there's a neighborhood called Parque das Nações, which is pretty flat, but also it has nice views, it's close to the water, which is really nice on a hot summer night. And if your knees for some reason said bye-bye, you can always go and see a doctor. And healthcare in Portugal is just amazing, especially if you're coming from States, especially if you're coming from Canada. You will appreciate Portuguese healthcare so much. Portuguese healthcare has been ranked 12th in the world by World Health Organization in terms of overall performance. For example, Canada takes the 30th place and States take the 37th place. If you have legal status here in Portugal, you can get access to public healthcare, but you can always purchase insurance and get access to private healthcare. The service in both public and private hospitals is just amazing, and the wait times, you're not ready for this. My husband had to go to the ER. It took him 1 hour in and out to get everything done, meaning wait for the doctor, get all the x-rays done, talk to the doctor again, and go back home. 1 hour. In Canada or America, it would be like, oh, you're not dying? It's fine. Just wait till tomorrow. It's gonna be fine. And the best part is he paid 40 euros for his visit with the insurance. And speaking of prices, the prices will be determined based on your insurance. In public hospitals, most of the things are free, but expect to pay for some extra things like, hospital stay or maybe some tests. It really depends on what's happening to you and where you are. But in a private hospital, here's what I pay. So for example, for a consultation with a doctor, I pay 15 euros fixed. So my insurance basically says, we don't care how much is your appointment, 100 or 30 euros, you pay 15 euros fixed. For my blood test, I paid 38 euros. For my ECG, I paid €1.50. Pap smears, mammograms, they're all around like 20 euros. My insurance also covers eyes and teeth, but for the teeth, let's say it only covers 500 euros and only covers 50% of your price. So I went to do some x-rays. I paid 80 euros for 2 x-rays and my insurance covered just half, so 40 euros. So basically, get 1 x-ray done, get the second one for free. And the next thing hit us really hard when we moved to Portugal, and that's the cost of living. Before moving to Portugal, we spoke to our friends who've been here and they were like, oh, Portugal and Lisbon in particular are so amazing. The food is really cheap, everything is so affordable. Well, not anymore. That was the case 10 years ago. Now the prices are just ridiculous. If you want to maintain a living standard from your country, be ready to pay for that. Portugal is currently experiencing a housing crisis, and the government even shut down the Golden Visa program because the housing is simply not affordable anymore. The accommodation prices simply do not make any sense, even to us foreigners. At this point, it is cheaper to rent in Montreal, even in Toronto, than in Lisbon. The prices here are just crazy. Housing prices in Portugal have surged over 80% in the past 12 years. And that is more prominent in major cities like Porto or Lisbon. So if you have a tight budget, you might want to consider living in smaller cities. And see for yourself, here are the prices for apartments in Lisbon. When we moved 2 years ago, we were like, yeah, we'll find a nice spacious apartment downtown Lisbon for like 800, maybe 1000 max. Yeah. No. Another expectation that people have about moving to Portugal is that you absolutely must speak the language in order to survive. Well, not really. Even though it is really nice to learn the language of the country you live in, you can easily survive without speaking Portuguese. Pode falar pouco de português, but when I go to see a doctor, I speak English because my Portuguese is not there yet. But please don't assume that everyone speaks English. Yes, the majority of the country speaks English. We've been to other cities, we've been to villages, we've been to major cities like Lisbon, Porto, and everywhere people would at least try to speak English. But if you need to deal with public services like IMT to exchange your driver license or Segurança Social, where you need to get your social security number, there you might need a translator or an interpreter. But you can always ask. Every time I call somebody or I go anywhere, I literally say, Bom dia, fala inglês, and then depending on the answer, you can either continue your conversation in English, or if you call in, let's say, a hospital or, I don't know, IMT, you can say, Obrigada, ligo mais tarde. Thank you, I will call you later. And then you can ask your translator or whoever is helping you to call back and schedule an appointment for you. Portuguese people are really nice. They're really understanding. They try to speak English as much as they can. But it would be really nice if you could learn some basic phrases like, hey, how are you? Do you speak English? Thank you and please. In terms of cultural differences and the vibe overall, I feel like Portuguese people are generally more relaxed than North Americans, for example. Similarly to Americans and Canadians, Portuguese value their families, so they gather for different holidays like, Christmas, New Year's. Portuguese people are known for their hospitality, and I've only had great experience, honestly. They really like hosting guests, and they will often go out of the way to make visitors feel comfortable. I remember when my husband and I went to see a guy for like a business meeting, and I was like, hey, can we go? I'm like super hungry. And the Portuguese man was like, oh my God, you're so hungry. Please take the banana, please take this fruit, blah, blah. He saw me for the first time in his life. I was just a random lady basically, and he was like, please, do you want me to bring you water or like make you tea? I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, And another thing is that Portuguese people love to celebrate things. First of all, there are many different holidays here in Portugal: religious, historical, cultural. The biggest one, I would say, except for Christmas, is Santos Populares, which is basically a whole month of celebrations. And if you happen to be in Lisbon or in Portugal during June, good luck to you, my friend, because there are gonna be so many festivities. It's just crazy. The first time I saw that, I was like, oh my God, people literally party for the whole month. This is amazing. And the next thing that kind of surprised me was the fact that Portugal is really small, especially if you're coming from bigger countries like Canada, States. From very north to very south, it will take you 6 hours. What is a 6-hour drive for my North American friends? Well, it's going from Montreal to Toronto, from Montreal to New York City. Like 6 hours in North America is literally tiny, but in Portugal you can explore the whole country in 6 hours. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That means everything is super close to you. You want to go to the beach, 15 minutes. You want to go shopping, go to outlets, 30 minutes. You want to drive to another country, for example, Spain. Madrid, 6 hours from Lisbon. Seville, 4.5. How cool is that? And speaking of traveling, I did not expect how convenient and easy and cheaper, of course, traveling would be from Portugal. Because traveling from Canada, from Montreal, A, it takes lots of planning. B, it takes lots of money because flights are literally $800 round trip. Here in Portugal, we fly for like 20 euros, 30 euros. I mean, if you plan in advance. If you don't plan in advance, don't expect prices to be like 20, 30 euros. They're gonna be 200, 300, but it's still much cheaper than flying from Canada. And this is it for today. The last piece of advice I have for you is try to learn the language, try to integrate into the community, especially if you're planning to stay in Portugal, to call Portugal your new home. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any new videos about Portugal. I wish you best of luck with your move and see you guys next week. Bye!